You know, the last fellow had this job kept talking about infrastructure week for 4 years. We not only took care of infrastructure, we have an infrastructure decade. This is going on. It's $1,200,000,000. You know, we used to have the finest infrastructure in the world. We now rank number 13 in the quality of our infrastructure. China's ahead of us. So many other countries have moved. Folks, this matters. It matters our safety, our security, our health, and a whole range of. Not only that, about 700 miles of highway in New Hampshire are in poor condition. It's estimated that the driving on those roads, those 700 miles, roughly 700 miles, that need repairs cost New Hampshire drivers at least an average of $476 a year extra in gas and repairs and longer commute times. That's a $476 hidden tax on New Hampshire drivers. Look, thanks to the infrastructure law, we're making the most significant investment in modernizing our roads and bridges since the interstate highway system was built with Eisenhower. We're also going to start to replace the 100%, all 100% of lead water pipes and service lines going into our homes and our schools. There are 10 million homes and 400,000 schools and preschools and daycare centers that have lead water pipes bringing the water in. Many of that causes mental illness, brain damage. It's really important. We're also going to address what they call PFAS. It's a dangerous forever chemicals that are a threat to drinking water here in New Hampshire and other states, something that Senator Shaheen has championed. Look, every American, every child should be able to turn on a faucet, drink clean water, which will also create thousands of good-paying jobs for plumbers, pipe fitters, and the folks digging those channels. And by the way, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, New Hampshire has already seen $150 million being put into drinking water, wastewater, and storm sewer projects in this state as I speak. Maggie and Chris and Annie, we share a core belief. High-speed internet is essential to success in the 21st century. But even today, 1 in every 10 people in New Hampshire, 1 in 10 households, don't have high-speed internet. That's a lot of places where there's no broadband or infrastructure at all in New Hampshire. It's not just New Hampshire families, but for New Hampshire businesses as well. This law is going to make high-speed internet affordable and available everywhere in New Hampshire, Maine, and the region, urban, suburban, rural. It's going to create jobs. Thousands of union technicians can be laying down these broadband lines. And never again should a parent have to sit in their car in a McDonald's parking lot, literally, so that their child can get access to high-speed internet to do their homework over the internet, literally. Folks, look, the law also builds up our resilience to extreme weather. 15 years ago this week, this state experienced a second 100-year flood in a space of 11 months. Cars submerged, thousands of evacuations, people lost everything they owned twice. Our infrastructure law upgrades stormwater management systems, builds new transmission lines and towers so fewer will be flooded out in their homes or lose power in days and weeks because of these storms. There's so much more in this law. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of it, but it's significant. Look, we've made a lot of progress, and we have an incredible opportunity ahead of us. But we know what families are still struggling with higher prices. I grew up in a family where the price of gasoline went up at the pump was a discussion at the kitchen table because my dad, who was a good man, made a decent living, but it was always on the margins. Everything mattered. So let's be absolutely clear about why we have such high prices now. There are 2 reasons. First was COVID. The way the global economy works, if a factory in Vietnam makes computer chips and shuts down in Vietnam because of a COVID outbreak, it causes a ripple effect to slow down manufacturing in Detroit, where they need those semiconductors to build the automobiles. So because of the pandemic, we had disruptions in our supply of important materials. So prices went up. As I said, just look at automobiles. Last year alone, they accounted for 1/3 of all the inflation in America because the price went up because so fewer were being made. Automobile companies couldn't get the computer chips, and the price of automobiles skyrocketed. So I'm calling on Congress to pass the bipartisan innovation bill to make more of these chips here at home and speed the supply. Intel came to see me, the chairman of the board of Intel. He said, I want to be able to invest $20 billion to build the computer chips factories in just west of Cleveland. If in fact we get this other piece of legislation, which is passed one house and not the other, he's going to invest another $100 billion. $100 billion. You know what the average job, there's over 7,000 construction jobs and 3,800 full-time jobs. Average salary of the full-time jobs, and many of them are blue-collar jobs, are $126,000 a year. Things are changing. And the second big reason for inflation is Vladimir Putin. Not a joke. Putin's invasion of Ukraine has driven up gas prices and food prices all over the world. Two major breadbaskets of wheat in the world were Ukraine and Russia. The United States is number 3, and Canada number 4. Well, we saw the most recent inflation data. Last month, about 70% of the increase in inflation was a consequence of Putin's price hike because of the impact on gas and energy prices. I'm doing everything I can to bring down the price to address Putin's price hike. That's why I authorized the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months from our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And I know the press is always asking me with good reason why I'm always on the phone talking with other world leaders, trying to keep them organized. Well, one of the things I did when I got a lot of other countries to agree that they would release petroleum from their SPRO reserves. So we work with the U.S. oil producers to ramp up the production. And we coordinated this release with our partners, allies around the world. And shortly after I made the announcement, another 30 countries agreed to 60 million additional barrels a day on the market. So now we have 240 million barrels a day for the next 6 months. That's the largest collective reserve release in history. Nations coming together to help deny Putin the ability to weaponize energy resources against American families and families in Europe and around the world. But there's more that need to be done. And Americans should already be seeing the savings. Although it's only gone down about 18 cents, the savings are starting. Beyond gas prices, I've called on Congress to move immediately to lower the cost of family utility bills, prescription drug bills, and more, while lowering the deficit and reducing inflation. That would make a big difference for families. We can do a lot of these things without raising a single penny on taxes of anyone making less than $400,000 a year. Nobody making less than $400,000 will see a single penny in their taxes raised. It's the best way Congress can address inflation right now. And folks, look, the fact is that we are in a situation where the war in Ukraine is going to continue to take its toll on the world economy. It's going to take its toll on energy, and it's going to take its toll relative to food. When I was running for office, you heard it 1,000 times from me, that we're going to build an economy around you. I'm so tired of trickle-down economics. I never found that trickled down on top of my head very much. I was listed, had the great pleasure of being listed as the poorest man in Congress for 36 years. I still had making a hell of a lot more money than anybody else because I was getting a senator's salary. No kidding. I didn't think you should make money while you're in office. But anyway, the point of it is this. An awful lot of people are hurting. It makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. The cost of a dozen eggs, the cost of a gallon of gasoline. It matters. It matters. So I concluded when I ran this last time that we're going to build this economy from the bottom up and the middle out. Because when that happens, everybody does well. The wealthy do very well, and the poor have a ladder up, and the middle class has a little bit of breathing room. I grew up in a household where we lived in a split-level home, 3 bedrooms, 4 kids, mom and dad and a grandpa would live with us. And I remember one night, the walls were kind of thin. My dad was restless. Next morning when he went to work, I asked Mom what was the problem. She said, he just noticed his company just said no more, not going to cover health insurance anymore. It matters. These things matter to people. They matter to ordinary people. We can, in fact, provide for anyone who has type 1 diabetes or a child, or 200,000 kids who have it. They need that insulin every single day. Average cost is $647 a month. Sometimes as low as $90 and as high as $1,000, depending where you are. Now, how much it costs to make one of those vials of insulin? $10 dollars. Not a single change has been made in that insulin since it was first discovered. And so we can set that price at maximum of $35. They still make a significant profit. And what God's name are we doing? Look, I'm a capitalist. I think people should be able to go out and make millions of dollars, even $1 billion if you can make it. But at least pay your fair share. Pay something. Pay something.